My favorite time of the week. I'm glad we moved it to Wednesday. I'm not going to be here tomorrow to celebrate the birth of our nation, so it makes me happy to have some storm warnings coming in. And let's start off with, you went last night to the T-Mobile Arena, and you wanted to experience Caitlin Clark. And I want to get your feedback about what you witnessed when 20,000 people saw this young lady play basketball.
Well, apparently I wasn't alone in wanting to go see her yesterday because it was a massive crowd. I was actually late for tip-off because there were so many cars as I was trying to park. The traffic was so ridiculous. But if anybody was concerned that, hey, this Caitlin Clark phenomenon, it's dying down, no, the Caitlin Clark fever is alive and well, okay? Everybody is all about this girl. We think about T-Mobile Arena, a venue that has hosted Stanley Cup final games, UFC 300, marquee basketball tournaments. You know what was the most attended sporting event in that building? A sub-500 Indiana Fever team visiting the Las Vegas Aces last night. 20,366 people in the house. It was the most fans in attendance at a WNBA game since 1999, fifth most in league history. Yes, the Aces have been the league leader in attendance the last couple of years, but for them to have to move from Mandalay Bay, Michelob Ultra Arena to put that game in T-Mobile because there was so much demand for it, and while of course the Aces fans were there in full force, even though Caitlin Clark had a bad shooting day, assist master flash for sure. She was awesome from that standpoint, as she always is. Shooting day was off. Anytime this girl did anything good, it was ooh, it was ah. It was cheering for her, even though it's a road game. Again, if anybody was concerned that maybe the hysteria was going to die off and that people weren't going to be into the WNBA, people weren't going to care about Caitlin Clark at the WNBA level, I can just say, having experienced it in person, I'm sorry, you were dead wrong. And congrats to her, by the way, and Angel Reese is the first rookies in a decade to both make the WNBA All-Star team. Pretty cool.
Love it. I love it. And let's stick at the T-Mobile Arena.
Yes.
Your favorite team that plays there, the Las Vegas Knights. Now, free agency in the NBA has dominated, and unfortunately, you've taken a lot of questions to me about the 76ers. So I'd like to ask you questions about your Golden Knights and all the movement that has happened based on the free agency in the NHL and the draft.
So I could probably go the whole segment on this, so I'm going to try not to ramble.
Go.
But I want to get on my soapbox for a minute here.
I mean, look, you let me ramble about Joel Embiid being on the ground 87 times. So why not? Can't you ramble every now and then? Come on.
I appreciate you, Michael. Yeah, this summer could end up being one of the most transformative in Golden Knights history. After a first-round playoff exit this past year, the Golden Knights earlier this week, saw 9 players on the roster that, guys that won a Stanley Cup just a year ago who are out the door, core pieces, leaders, gone. And for our football audience, there's only 23 players on an NHL roster, just 20 that dress. So essentially, this is like half the team that is out the window. And it's a list headlined by an original misfit and the Conn Smythe winner from that Stanley Cup final, Jonathan Marchessault, which I think hits particularly close to home for fans and people like myself. You think about the 7-year history of this franchise, and I don't know if there's a player that embodies more what this organization is about than Jonathan Marchessault, who was a cast-off from Florida, who comes to Vegas and ends up becoming a household name. He is the franchise leader in games played, goals, assists, points, playoff points, game-winning goals. The list goes on and on. Thought he was going to be a Golden Knight for life. Now he's a Nashville Predator. Just like, we talked about the Giants earlier. Saquon Barkley wanted to be a Giant for life. Now he's a Philadelphia Eagle. All this to say, for as much as the fans and myself that are close to the team, love the team, are passionate about it, this is a business. This is what happens. And ultimately, the Nashville Predators are making a big swing, and they want to win. They were willing to offer Jonathan Marchessault something ultimately that the Vegas Golden Knights weren't able to with this salary cap structure and with a 5-year term that Vegas and general manager Kelly McCrimmon weren't going to give. And I understand that this is a fan base because of the history that this team made in year one, and the connection that the community has to it, and the fact that they did win a Stanley Cup in such a young history, right? You are so tied and connected to all of these players. But this is nothing new. This has happened with the Golden Knights every single year that they lose marquee players that we love. Marc-Andre Fleury, Nate Schmidt, Ryan Reeves, the list goes on and on. Chandler Stevenson is also out the door this year. He's a guy that turned his career around, who was a fourth liner with the Washington Capitals that turned into a top line center with this team. He earned a 7-year, $6.25 million deal that the Golden Knights couldn't offer him. Good for him. He outplayed his contract and secured a bag elsewhere that the Golden Knights ultimately couldn't give him. And I just feel, Michael, you're a former NFL GM. I feel bad to an extent for general manager Kelly McCrimmon, who's given so much grief about this, when ultimately it's the business side of things. It happens each and every year, every team in every league. Turnover happens, but you know what? Stanley Cup odds, Vegas Golden Knights, they were 16-1 last week. You know what they still are? 16-1. Because Kelly McCrimmon also each and every year seems to put a roster together that can deliver. So I believe in Kelly McCrimmon. I know he'll figure things out and it'll be fine.
Well, that was my follow-up question to you is, after the dust has settled, where are you with this team? Forget the odds. Where are you think this team can be today, and what do they need to do moving forward?
Well, what's interesting is, this past season, mid-season, they made some acquisitions in a Tomas Hertl, for example, who, if they were to have made that deal this week, it would have been considered a big splash. And wow, look at the Golden Knights going for it again. But because it happened in season, it's kind of pushed to the side a little bit. They're really good about tinkering with the roster and doing the salary cap gymnastics and being able to find pieces and always make a splash. It sucks that so many guys are gone. I know. It pains me. As somebody who covered the team just 3 years ago, there's literally only 9 guys left that I even know. So it sucks. It's hard, but I think that the Golden Knights are going to be good. They're 16-1, like I mentioned, in the Stanley Cup odds. They're 8-1 in the Western Conference. They're the second shortest shot in the Pacific Division. I think they're going to be just fine.
Okay, let's shift gears to college football. Utah is now in the Big 12, and I think Utah has always played like they've been in the Big 10, even though they were in the Pac-12. Tell me what your read is on Utah as they enter the Big 12 this year with a 25-year-old quarterback and Cam Rising still playing for him.
Yeah, it's a 7th year of college football. How insane is that? Huge fan. I'm betting Utah everything. I love everything that there is to love about the Utah Utes in 2024. And let's start at the conference level, as you referenced. They're going from a league in the Pac-12 that this past year, right, was top to bottom, you could argue, one of the best, if not the best, in college football. Now they go to the Big 12, which is significantly weaker. The toughest games on their schedule are at Oklahoma State and at UCF. They avoid some of the tougher teams in the league, like Kansas State and Kansas. According to ESPN's FPI, Utah's schedule ranks 72nd in difficulty nationally. The last 5-ish seasons, they were among the top 25 in the hardest schedules in all of college football. Now let's throw in the fact that they still went 8-4 last year despite being decimated with injuries. You mentioned their quarterback, Cam Rising. He didn't play the entire year coming back from a torn ACL. He's going to be back. So many talented pieces on this roster are back. Their defense is going to be elite. To me, they have one of the best coaches in college football in Kyle Whittingham, who's been there forever. Also, you look at the home field advantage. This is something that producer Elliot, myself, and John Goulet were talking about yesterday with this Utah team. Home field advantage in Rice-Eccles Stadium, super underrated. And I think it's because it's like a stadium with its capacity 50 to 60,000. It's not like Texas A&M where you've got 100,000 strong, but one of the best student sections in college football. I've been in that building for big games. It is deafening. They were 6-1 at home last year. Lone loss to then number 8 Oregon in October, where the Utes were on their 3rd string quarterback. In fact, that's their only home loss in the last 3 full seasons. They're 18-1 in that time. They're 27-2 the last 5 years at home. How their season win total is 9.5 is beyond me. I cannot find more than 2 losses on their schedule, if that. They're plus 320 to win the Big 12, plus 120 just to make the Big 12 title game, which I hate to say, it just feels like free money based on their schedule. If they stay healthy, they're winning that. They're getting to the big game. Plus 220 to make the college football playoff, Michael. I think it would actually be a massive disappointment for the Utah Utes if they're not in the college football playoff. Everything is set up for them to have success this year.
Yeah, I would say that's right. I think Cam Rising's a good player.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is a guy that doesn't come with a lot of, the intangibles. And look, I know that, that Kyle Whittingham may retire and they've got Stanley in place. I think that's his name, right?
Morgan
to replace
Scally.
him. But Scally, I'm sorry. But to me, this is a tough-minded. This is a Big Ten team that plays. It's going to be playing in the Big 12. It'll be fun to watch.
They're tough, physical. The defense is going to be awesome. And Cam Rising, to your point, in his 2 years as a starter, 46 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions. I don't hate a 45-1 long shot on him to throw in for the Heisman ring as well if you're looking for a pizza money play.